Dale Earnhardt Jr. just dropped a grenade into the NASCAR garage, and it landed squarely inside Joe Gibbs Racing. When one of the most trusted voices in the sport says something feels off, people pay attention. But when that same voice sounds stunned, confused, and openly suspicious, it raises a question no one at JGR seems willing to answer, because something doesn't add up. Chris Gabehart isn't just another name on a pit box. He was the architect behind 22 Denny Hamlin wins, including back-to-back Daytona, 500 seconds. Championship 4 runs became routine under his leadership. That kind of success doesn't happen by luck. Gabehart wasn't just calling races. He was the backbone of the operation. JGR believed in him so deeply, they pulled him off the pit box and promoted him to director of competition last year, handing him the keys to the organization's future. And now, he's gone. No farewell, no public appreciation, no statement wishing him well. Just silence. Even stranger, the news didn't come from a carefully crafted press release. It broke on a sidewalk outside a courthouse, where reporter Jenna Fryer casually dropped the bomb. Chris Gabehart had left Joe Gibbs Racing. And suddenly, the quiet became deafening. Denny Hamlin, the driver who built much of his legacy alongside Gabehart, was asked about the departure. His response? No comment, no gratitude, no acknowledgement, just a brick wall. That's when Dale Earnhardt Jr. stepped in and said what everyone else wouldn't. On his podcast, he called it a massive loss and questioned the general temperature inside the JGR building. In Dale Jr., language? That's a warning sign. Something isn't right behind closed doors. He went further, pointing out how critical Gabehart's role was. Director of competition isn't ceremonial, it's foundational. Dale even said, "Man, this guy is perfect for this." And yet, less than a year later, the perfect fit has vanished. No explanation, no clarity, just more questions. To understand why, you have to rewind. Gabehart wasn't only overseeing competition. Midway through the season, he was pulled into another crisis, Ty Gibbs. The number 54 team was floundering. Results were sliding. Momentum was gone. And suddenly, Gabehart was back in the trenches, stepping in not because it was his job, but because the organization needed saving. Dale Jr. noticed it too. He described JGR as being in a bind, with Gabehart essentially saying, "Let me come in here and try to steer this thing back on course." And it worked. Ty Gibbs caught fire. He won the in-season challenge and $1 million bonus. He finished second in Chicago. Top 5s and top 10s followed. That turnaround wasn't luck, it was Gabehart. But here's where the tension builds. Dale Jr. questioned whether Gabehart ever wanted to be pulled back into that grind. His take? Gabehart didn't choose it. He accepted it out of responsibility. And that's where things may have started to fracture. Was he really allowed to focus on shaping the future of the organization? Or was he constantly dragged back into damage control, cleaning up problems tied to the boss's grandson? You don't promote someone to director of competition just to use them as an emergency crew chief. That's like hiring a general and asking him to change a flat tire. It doesn't make sense. Then came the rumors. Word spread that Gabehart might land at Spire Motorsports, a smaller team, but one with serious funding and long-term ambition, a place where a mind like his could build something his way. But another twist followed. Spire announced their crew chief lineup, and Gabehart's name wasn't there. Now, no one knows where he's headed. He walked away from one of the most powerful positions in NASCAR with no public destination. And Joe Gibbs Racing still hasn't said a word. No tribute, no thank you. Not even a social media post. That silence speaks volumes. Because when a top-level leader exits after just 1 year in a critical role, and the organization refuses to acknowledge it, that's not normal. That's not professional. That's a fire alarm. Dale Jr. isn't buying it either. He admitted he was certainly shocked. And Dale doesn't say that unless something feels fundamentally wrong. So what's really going on? Around the garage, whispers are growing louder about family overrides. A term crew chief Tommy Baldwin referenced, describing situations where decisions aren't made by competition experts, but by family influence at the top. Sound familiar? Ty Gibbs is the future of JGR, at least on paper. But let's be honest, he hasn't earned that status on pure results. He's winless in the Cup Series. There's talent, no doubt, but inconsistency defines his resume so far. And when things went sideways, it wasn't the system that fixed it, it was Gabehart stepping in. Not because it was his responsibility, but because the family needed it done. So how long does a championship caliber leader tolerate that? How long before the man tasked with steering the entire organization starts feeling more like a personal safety net for the heir apparent? That may have been the breaking point. Dale Jr. hinted again that Gabehardt's director of competition role should have been focused on long-term vision, not constant crisis management. And maybe Gabehart finally realized he couldn't do both. That's how elite teams fall apart. Not all at once, but slowly, quietly, decision by decision. And here's the uncomfortable thought no one wants to voice. What if this is just the beginning? Joe Gibbs Racing has been a dynasty. Championships, Daytona, 500 seconds, decades of dominance. But even the strongest organizations can rot from the inside when leadership stops listening and the garage loses its voice. Right now, everyone is watching. No public thanks for Gabehardt's 13 years. No message from Joe Gibbs. No statement from Ty. No acknowledgement from Hamlin. That doesn't happen after a clean, mutual split. That's a breakup. And what makes it even more unsettling? No one knows where Gabehart is going next. Not even Dale Jr. And that uncertainty feels like a storm gathering on the horizon, quiet but dangerous. Because if Gabehart resurfaces